Have you ever wondered why we're so obsessed with the kid who made it before he could legally rent a car? We see the 20-year-old CEO on the magazine cover, the prodigy in the tailored suit, and we feel that familiar, dull pressure settle somewhere in the chest. It's like reading a race result page and realizing your name is at the bottom, printed so small it's almost invisible. But there's a secret in the room that nobody talks about, mostly because the people who understand it don't need to explain it. The most dangerous person in that building isn't the golden boy with the venture capital check. It's the one sitting in the back, the one who is 35 or 40 and has just decided to start. That person isn't dangerous because they're talented. They're dangerous because they've stepped outside the game everyone else is still playing. While the prodigies were being validated, praised, and protected by a system that loves a fast start, the late bloomer was being ignored, underestimated, pressed flat by a decade of reality the golden boy hasn't had to touch yet. The danger of a late bloomer doesn't show up on a CV or a LinkedIn profile. You can't measure it in certificates. It comes from something more volatile: psychological immunity. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid the feeling of being nothing. They protect their potential like fragile glass. A late bloomer has already survived the death of their ego. When you start real work at 40, you're not naive anymore. You're calibrated. You've worked jobs where nobody learned your name, failed in ways that felt permanent, stood in lines early achievers don't even know exist, and you're still here. That makes you a problem. Early achievers live with status anxiety. They have a reputation to maintain, a genius label to defend, a lifestyle they're terrified of losing. Every move risks exposure. They don't take big swings because the fall would be too public. The late bloomer has the burned bridges advantage. When you have no status, you have no fear. You've been on the ground and learned something important. The ground is solid. You've lived the stagnant life. You've worked the jobs the world uses to fill gaps. You know the exact emotional cost of staying where you don't belong. You're not testing the waters. You're moving with ferocity because you know what going back looks like. You've seen the alternative and decided it's finished. That lack of vanity becomes a superpower. You learn faster because you don't care about looking like an amateur. You ask questions experts avoid because they're protecting an image. You do the work nobody claps for. You're a veteran of the mundane, and that gives you an endurance that isn't built on slogans, but on competence. While the world was watching the 20-year-old, you were developing vision. You spent years watching people closely, sitting in the back of meetings, working warehouse floors, grinding through shifts in cities where nobody cared about your potential. You became a professional observer. In that time, you built a database of human behavior no 22-year-old could ever fake. You can read a room, hear the lie before the sentence finishes, know who has substance and who is bluffing. You don't study markets, you study people. This observer status makes you a quiet threat. By the time you step onto the field, you already know where the traps are buried. You've seen golden boys burn out, and you've watched it happen in real time. You also have empathy that isn't theoretical. People follow leaders who've eaten dirt. When you lead from shared struggle, you don't need a handbook. You already have credibility. Then there's the hunger. A 20-year-old thinks 6 months is forever. They can drift, get distracted, waste years finding themselves because they believe time is infinite. You don't have that luxury, and you don't want it. You work with the urgency of someone who knows how fast the clock actually moves. You don't want plans that involve seeing how it goes. You want traction. Now. That compressed timeline sharpens focus. You've already done the wandering and the identity crises. Those years weren't wasted. They were data collection. Now the experimenting stops and the execution starts. The second act is powerful because there's no audience. You're not trying to impress parents, classmates, or ghosts from your past. You're not chasing validation from a world that ignored you anyway. The motivation is internal. It's about the work. It's about the plan. You're debt-free in your head. Think about what you've built while others were busy being successful. Thick skin from being dismissed. Calm under pressure because you've seen collapse before. An ego low enough to pivot without panic. That's armor. That's radar. That's stealth. The world loves prodigies because they're easy stories, clean and marketable. But it fears the person who spent 20 years in the dark, learning, surviving, waiting, and then steps forward with nothing left to lose. Success at 20 is often a glass house built on luck and speed. Success at 40 is a fortress built on impact, pattern recognition, and pain that taught lessons instead of bitterness. If you feel like you wasted your life, look again. Those years weren't a mistake. They were reconnaissance. Every dead-end job, every failed move, every night you wondered if this was it, that was training. You weren't falling behind. You were arming yourself. The people who arrived early are already tired, complacent, busy protecting what they have. You're just getting started. You have the hunger of someone who's been fasting for a decade, the vision of someone who watched from the shadows, and the freedom of someone who knows the worst already happened, and it didn't kill you. The sun is still up. Stop apologizing for the delay. The masterpieces aren't made by the ones who started fastest. They're made by the ones who stayed long enough to understand what they were building. You have the material. You have the perspective. You have the engine. And now, finally, you have permission. I think I hear the floorboards creaking. It's time to get to work.